you want to go to Lemonade?
I'll just share a couple nuggets quickly that I've found, and then toss it back to you guys for some Tesla talk. I'll dive in a little bit more. So I think good news, bad news out of this report. The thing everyone was worried about with this report in particular was the California wildfires. Now, this is a Q1 event, but Jim Chanos was basically talking about how this could bankrupt the company and like their exposure is like really high. Some of the estimates we were seeing out there was like $100 million impact, which would certainly not bankrupt the company, but which would certainly suck in the short term. We were sort of thinking based on some digging that we had done and others in the Lemonade community that it'd be like a $10 million type of impact. But what they're saying in the letter is that it's actually going to be more like a $45 million EBITDA impact. So that's a bit of bad news. I think it's really important to keep in mind that this is a one-time item and that they have more than sufficient liquidity to handle this. They've been reducing their home exposure in general. This is still significantly lower than what a lot of the doomsayers were claiming out there. Mm-hmm. What I think is way more important and indicative of the long-term health of the company is their loss ratio. For those of you who are not insurance nerds, loss ratio is basically for every dollar you bring in, how much are you paying out in claims? Loss ratio in Q4 was a staggering 63%. That is phenomenal. That is so good.
That's awesome.
So the core health of the business is unbelievably strong.
Wow.
I'll do a little bit more digging, but that is a bit of a mic drop stat, I think. And then last one, I'll just show you. So they were talking about their loss ratio by line, and car has historically been like very bad. It was over 100% for a long while. It was at 92% last quarter. It's at 83% right now. So really significantly coming down. Their homeowners multi-peril, mostly renters, but it's also homeowners. That was 55% in Q4, which I don't think we've ever seen a 5 handle on any of their products before.
Wow.
So that's really good. And I can keep digging into some of the other nuggets from here. But overall, my initial impression is insurance, the fire slightly worse than I was expecting. But
we thought it'd be under 25 million. So it's 45, which a lot less than 100, but worse than 25 for sure.
Yeah.
There we go.
Conga.
Yeah, so that's very good. So let's just explain loss ratio for a moment. Essentially what it means is for every 100 cents on the dollar in premiums that you collect from the customers, loss ratio is how many cents out you're paying out in claims to your insurance customers. And typically like 70+% is a good loss ratio. Then you have your added headquarters costs and R&D and stuff on top of that. So 63% is a huge number. I'm curious what they guide to for the year coming. So I think this is great news, and that it signals to me that the core underlying business is strong. What I would be interested to hear from Matt is like any early news about how good car insurance is going. I believe that they started advertising for car insurance in January, but also Lemonade doesn't have to advertise. There's people on the wait list. There's also people in the app so that have renters or pet insurance that they can just send an in-app notification. They could send an email. They might have their address. They can send them postcards.
No significant move in Q4, which is kind of what we were expecting because we saw that big uptick in activity kind of midway through Q1. What was it? Late January? I think we started noticing
mid-January.
Mid-January. So they had in Q3 they had $117 million of in-force premium on the car side of the business. That increased only to $122 million. So pretty modest $5 million increase in that in-force premium. But that's the line item that we think is going to go a bit parabolic in 2025 and beyond. So that I think is going to be driving a lot of the results, but it's good to see that the kind of core pet and renters insurance is doing so well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, the theory within the Lemonade community page is the reason why renters and homeowners is bundled is because had it come out the loss ratio of renters insurance, there might be backlash because of how low it is, which means, if for people who maybe perhaps don't know Lemonade too well, they are working with policy types and coverage types that are, fairly fast paced, a lot of data to be collected. a lot of recursive programming of their algorithms using AI. And so these things like pet insurance, renters insurance, they take time to build up data, but it seems to be that when they do, Lemonade can offer renters insurance at 60% the cost of competition and still probably be in around 45% loss ratios, as some people have done the math behind, which is just absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, that sounds amazing. And kudos to Paperbag Investor, because I think he guessed 63% on his model, which is fairly bang on.
Yeah,
No,
the
that sounds
other
great.
surprise for me, that was something that I was kind of thinking could be the case, but I didn't want to bank on it in our base case for the model. They were talking about how cash flow is going to take a hit in Q4. It was actually positive. Adjusted free cash flow was $27 million, and cash flow from operations was positive $14 million. So their core cash flow performance that's actually a pretty big surprise up. So I'm honestly surprised at the stock market reaction right now. I mean, obviously it's after hours, could be somewhat thinly traded. The call is going to be tomorrow, so we'll get a lot more color on that in the morning. But as I'm reading through this, I'm like, okay, the one piece of bad news I can see is that fire loss, but that was expected. And I think that's what we saw when the stock was taking that tumble from like $40 or so to the low 30s. So if you look at how much market cap has been wiped off by a one-time $45 million impact, it's kind of crazy.
In Q2 or Q3, they generated a surprise free cash flow that no one expected of, I think, around 40 something million. And everyone was kind of blown away by that. So, consider this maybe not taking out the piggy bank. I don't know. I think the market is looking for any excuse right now to pummel things. And I think, as is the case with
that's my
Lemonade,
paranoid thought, is that there'd be good news and we'd see a great loss ratio and the stock would still be down.
You did say that before we went live. Unfortunately, you jinxed
It's
it.
just
You
like
called it exactly.
the brutal
Oh,
mood
my
of
God.
the day is like you have this brutal sell-off, and sometimes when you have these brutal sell-offs, like things just continue in inexplicable streaks.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the natural system. All right.